Hey buddy, watch this.
Hello, RegisKillbin is the name, and Hearthstone is the game, and the new expansion has leaked. That's right, this image behind me is from the official Chinese Hearthstone website. If you haven't seen this yet, this is the first revealed image of the new expansion, and I already want to talk about it. I have some ideas, I have some theory crafting, and it's just really fun to speculate. Yes, the official announcement is less than 24 hours away. Yes, I'll be doing videos on that too, but this is the best time to be a Hearthstone player, and look how freaking cool this is. So first things first, if you can't read those Chinese characters, much like me, people are saying that that translates into Knights of the Frozen Throne, and even in that logo, you can see the Frozen Throne of Arthas, the Lich King, of course, probably the most popular Warcraft lore villain in history, and behind it you can see Frostborn, his weapon sort of in the background there in the haze. You can see the hilt and the beginning of the blade of the weapon where there's some runes on it there. And of course we haven't seen Arthas yet in Hearthstone, and people have been looking for Arthas for a very long time, so it seems like finally we're going to get an Arthas card. Now, we don't know for sure that Knights of the Frozen Throne is the exact translation that the American version of the game will get, but it sure sounds reasonable. That sounds like the kind of name that Hearthstone would give an expansion. So I expect that's exactly what we'll end up seeing. But of course, that's not where this image ends. There's so much cool stuff to process here. Basically, what you're seeing is each of the Hearthstone's main player characters. So each of the 9 classes, right? But as you can see, they're not normal. They've got glowy eyes. They look a lot different. For instance, in the lower right-hand corner there, you've got Anduin, the priest hero, and it looks like he's got clawed fingers, basically, and maybe even like vampire teeth are happening there. So clearly, these people have turned into undead versions of themselves. You've got Scary Thrall up there in the upper right-hand corner. Valera's eyes on the right side are growing purple, and she looks perhaps even a little bit green. That might just be an artifact of her in this kind of blue lighting, so perhaps she's really just kind of bluish undead style. Rexar over there in the left looks looks sort of harrowed and thin, and he's got sort of the undead jaw. Looks like it's about to fall off maybe. So clearly it looks to me like what has happened here is that the heroes of Hearthstone, or the heroes of Warcraft perhaps as the game's title would suggest, have fallen to the Lich King. There's like an alternate universe here where in the actual game you go and your heroes get frozen, and then Tyrion comes with Ashbringer and he saves the day. But instead what has happened is perhaps in this alternate universe of Hearthstone, which, it always likes to play with what-if scenarios, like what if the old gods took over, as we saw in Whispers of the Old Gods. In this version, what if Arthas wins, and all of the biggest heroes and the biggest names in Warcraft are actually turned into undead? And that is the scenario for the game. I think that's the premise for it. And there's another theme here that seems to be popping up a lot too, which if you look at, like, you can see Garrosh's shoulder there, right? You've got Garrosh over there on the left, the base warrior hero, and his shoulder, it looks like it has ice on it. So the left shoulder there is covered in ice instead of his standard armor. And of course, ice is, another theme for the Lich King. He uses ice as a weapon. It's the Frozen Throne, etc. So it looks like that's another thing that we should keep an eye out for. And you can even see Uther's hammer. You see Uther there on the right. It looks like his hammer is even covered in ice of some sort. So clearly a lot of things have been iced over, and Thrall has ice chunks on his shoulders floating. So even the elements have seemed to have been affected by this ice in some way or another. There's just so many cool things to dissect in this image, right? You've got the Fanged Anduin. You've got Frosty Snow and Malfurion's beard. Rexar is wearing some sort of horned pauldron on his shoulder that looks like it has sort of a glowing evil face. Jaina and Valera both look like they've turned green or sort of an icy undead blue. Like, where do you even start? It's so crazy cool. So clearly a lot to dissect in this image, but I did want to suggest maybe some what I think this means for the expansion, And of course, yeah, you can wait a day and you're going to know a lot of these things for sure. But it's fun to talk about this guy. So I came up with some ideas for what I think we're going to see in Knights of the Frozen Throne. So some ideas to keep out for if you're just super hyped and you can't wait to talk about it. These are some of the things I suspect based on this image are going to show up in this expansion. So first and foremost, clearly something's happening to the heroes. We're going to get some undead versions of those characters. I think we're going to see things like alternate heroes like Lord Jaraxxus, or we've seen Ragnaros, with all of those kinds of things where your hero becomes a new hero. I think that's what's going to happen. So for instance, each class might get a new legendary card that says like Undead Thrall. And you play Undead Thrall, he gets a changed health, he gets a new hero power, maybe he gets a weapon by default. And it's something undead. So maybe you get like, this would sound silly, but undead versions of your totems. Like maybe you get a totem that freezes an enemy minion randomly, right? Those kinds of things. Maybe you get a totem that brings an allied minion back to life every turn. That sounds like it'd be kind of crazy powerful, but maybe it costs 4 mana. Who knows, right? There's all kinds of things. So maybe Anduin's hero power becomes deal 2 damage by default. So he's sort of like a shadow priest now, since he's undead, and that's your new hero power. I mean, really, the possibilities are endless, but how cool would it be to get 9 alternate versions of heroes? That's insane, and it would be so much fun, and it would completely shake up the meta if they're any good at all, so that would be a really exciting thing to see. On top of that, I think there will also just be some new versions of classic cards that we've seen in Hearthstone, so some of the named legendaries, much like we saw with Whispers of the Old Gods, where we got Ragnaros Lightlord instead of just Ragnaros, and we got the new version of Deathwing that pulls the dragons from your hand, so Deathwing Dragonlord instead of just Deathwing. We got these sort of corrupted versions of classic legendary minions. I think we'll see the same kind of thing here with Knights of the Frozen Throne. I think they'll just be like zombie versions or undead versions, or maybe even frozen versions, who knows, but I think we'll see what are traditionally considered good lore characters. So maybe we'll get a new Sylvanas, for instance, since we lost Sylvanas to the Hall of Fame. A Sylvanas that is somehow corrupted or even more undead than she already is. Those kinds of things. Maybe we'll get a new Millhouse Manastorm, right, that's been turned into a zombie. So we've got zombie Millhouse Manastorm, etc., etc. But just new takes and new spins on popular lore characters and classic cards like that. Another thing I think we're almost certainly sure to see is a lot of new freeze effects. The Frozen Throne, Northrend, there's a lot of snow. Lich Kings and those kinds of characters use ice as a weapon. There's clearly ice already added to this image, like we saw on Garrosh's shoulder there, and Uther's weapon, and Thrall, like I mentioned. So I suspect we're going to see a ton of freeze effects, and not only freeze effects, but probably counters to freeze effects. So maybe there will be more silences, maybe there will be tech cards specifically to answer freeze, so that freeze doesn't become a really frustrating mechanic, because I think that's the kind of thing that could become frustrating because it's just a stall mechanic, and freeze mage is already a good enough deck and doesn't need any help. So maybe there'll finally be some tech cards and answers to freeze mage. And then finally, I mean, it's pretty clear if you're talking about zombies, you're talking about undead, you're talking about bringing people back to life in a Lich King, Death Rattle minions seem like they're going to be a big part of that. So I would expect we'll see at least a handful of new, powerful Death Rattle minions. I think things like Spirit Singer Umbra in the last expansion was clearly thrown out there as a potentially powerful card that didn't get a lot of support in Unguro itself. Sure, there were some Death Rattles, but nothing crazy good. No huge legendaries to support it. So I think that was one of those cards that was sort of setting up the next expansion. We've seen that a lot, like Gadgetzan Ferryman in Mean Streets of Gadgetzan was terrible, but it was used to set up Quest Rogue in Unguro. I think maybe Umbra will be one of those cards, and lots of Death Rattles will pop into the game, and suddenly we'll have Death Rattle Priest and just Death Rattles to deal with everywhere, and maybe that's why Freeze becomes so good, because there's just always minions lingering around on the board. Who knows, but you can't have Undead and Lich King without Death Rattle and Freeze. So clearly, those are two mechanics I think that are going to take some priorities. As far as what other new mechanics are introduced, who knows? The sky is the limit. This is one of the most popular, most beloved, biggest expansions in Warcraft history. And of course, the Frozen Throne 2 was one of the big parts of Warcraft 3 that a lot of people have fond memories of. So clearly, this is a character and a space and some lore that Blizzard is going to do right, and they're going to go above and beyond to get this one right, because so many people have fond memories of this, and it's such an important part of their gaming history and nostalgia, that I think Blizzard knows if they do make a great expansion with Frozen Throne here, the sky's the limit as far as how much money they can make and how many players are going to be playing Hearthstone at this point. So I'm sure we're going to see some crazy stuff, some neat ideas. I think it's going to shake up the game in major ways, and thematically it looks about as cool and as fun as possible. So clearly I am extremely excited. And there's only going to be, you've got maybe 12 hours to watch this video before the actual expansion is officially announced, and we're probably going to see some cards. So we'll know more in the very near future, but hopefully you've enjoyed this real quick take on what Knights of the Frozen Throne might look like. And of course, stay tuned, because I'll be covering in great detail what Knights of the Frozen Throne is actually like over the course of the next month or so before the expansion is released. And then, of course, I'll be playing tons of it too. So this is one of the best places to get your Knights of the Frozen Throne fix, if you will. All that said, I'm curious what you guys think. How does this teaser image make you feel? What are we going to see? How cool is this? Etc., etc. Leave all those thoughts in the comments below. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And until next time, game on.